Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a real head-scratcher from American history. It's a story about incredible success and, at the very same time, heartbreaking failure, all happening down on the farm.
All right, let's just get right to it. This is the core paradox we're unpacking. After the Civil War, American agriculture just exploded. On the surface, it looked like a golden age of farming. But if you were one of the people actually working the land, it felt more like a catastrophe. So how on earth could both of those things be true at the same time?
To really get why things went so wrong, we've got to first understand just how massive this boom really was. See, after the war, America went all in on its agricultural dream, pushing west and completely transforming the country.
I mean, think about this number for a second. 25 million. That's how many people were living on farms by 1890. Just a generation earlier, it was 10 million. That is a huge jump. We're talking about millions of families pouring out west, all chasing the promise of a better life.
And it wasn't just more people cramming onto existing farms. Oh no, the number of actual individual farms more than doubled. This was a land rush on an epic scale, creating a brand new agricultural empire, one plot of land at a time.
And if you want to see what this looks like on the ground, just take Missouri. In only 20 years, the number of farms there almost doubled. It's just a staggering pace of change. And you have to imagine that same story playing out all across the American West.
So you might be wondering, what was fueling all this? Well, it was like a perfect storm. First, you had the government with the Homestead Act literally giving away land. Then you had the railroads expanding like crazy, selling off their own land and, this is key, connecting all these brand new farms to markets back east. And on top of all that, you had amazing new technology, like steel plows and mechanical reapers, that meant one farmer could suddenly do the work of 10.
Okay, so everything sounds great, right? A booming nation of farms. But this is exactly where the story takes a dark turn. That American dream? For millions of people, it was about to become a total nightmare.
And this slide really lays it all out. On one side, you have the promise: free land, incredible technology, new markets. But the reality they lived, it was a brutal fight against forces way outside their control. We're talking harsh weather, collapsing prices, and the crushing power of monopolies.
Let's talk about that free land out west. For a lot of folks, it turned out to be a cruel joke. They'd get there and discover the climate was just awful. Years of drought could wipe you out completely. Or you could get these unbelievable plagues of grasshoppers that would literally eat your entire crop in a single day. A lot of this land just wasn't meant for farming.
Meanwhile, down in the South, things were just as grim, but for totally different reasons. The old plantation system was replaced by what was called tenant farming. Basically, you worked land you would never, ever own, trapping families, both black and white, in a hopeless cycle of debt. King Cotton was still the only game in town, and it was a game rigged against the little guy.
But, it wasn't just about bad weather or tough soil. As we're about to see, farmers were caught in something much bigger. Like they were just cogs in a giant, unforgiving economic machine that was grinding them into poverty.
The whole American economy was incredibly fragile back then. And then you get something like the Panic of 1873. It was a massive financial crash fueled by wild speculation on the railroads. Sound familiar? When it hit, banks failed, businesses collapsed, and the depression that followed sent shockwaves all the way out to the most remote farms in the country.
In this table right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Because of all that new tech, farmers were producing more than ever, so they should have been getting rich, right? Nope. That flood of crops made prices totally collapse. Your wheat was suddenly worth less than half what it was a few years before. Your cotton, 80% less. You're working harder than ever and making dramatically less money. It's just mind-boggling.
So just try to put yourself in their boots. The railroads have a monopoly. They're your only way to get crops to market, so they charge you whatever they want. The banks are hitting you with punishing interest rates on the loans you have to take out. Even the government's money policy, the strict gold standard, made money scarce and debts almost impossible to repay. It really felt like the entire system was rigged against them.
Wow. This quote from a newspaper editor back then just says it all, doesn't it? There are 3 crops raised in Nebraska. One is a crop of corn, one is a crop of freight rates, and one a crop of interest. That's just brutal. It perfectly captures that feeling that all their hard work wasn't for them. It was just to line the pockets of the railroads and the bankers.
So when you're pushed into a corner like that, what do?
Well, you don't stay silent. You start to get loud, and that's exactly what happened. Farmers all across the country started raising their voices in a massive cry of protest.
Just listen to the fire in these words from Ignatius Donnelly, one of the movement's leaders. We meet in the midst of a nation brought to the verge of moral, political, and material ruin. We breed two classes, paupers and millionaires. You can just feel the raw anger. For them, this wasn't just about bad finances anymore. It felt like the soul of the country was at stake.
So, what did all that anger and frustration lead to? Well, they fought back. They got organized, and they took all that shared pain and channeled it into a powerful political movement that would shake the entire country to its core.
And it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It really grew from the ground up. It started small, with local farmers getting together in what they called farmers' alliances, just to share their problems. But then those little groups started connecting with each other, and before you knew it, they'd built a full-blown national political party, the People's Party, who we now know as the Populists. And you have to understand, the things they were asking for were absolutely radical for the 1890s. Government control of the railroads, an 8-hour workday, getting rid of the gold standard. These were huge, game-changing ideas. They even called for the direct election of senators, something we take for granted today, but back then it was a revolutionary idea to try and take power away from corporations and give it back to the people.
Now, in the end, the Populist Party itself didn't last, but the questions they asked, wow, those have definitely stuck around. They looked at an economy that was producing incredible wealth, but it was all flowing to the top, leaving them behind. And so they asked a really simple but incredibly powerful question. Who is this economy for? Who is it supposed to serve? And that's a question we are still grappling with today, isn't it?